Welcome to your tour on Dance in Paris. There is so much dance history in Paris, but on this tour we will focus on the must-sees, the sites that have shaped the world of dance in the City of Lights. The sites we will visit on this tour are scattered around the city, and you will not be able to do them all in one day. My recommendation is to start at the Musée d'Orsay. This may come as a surprise. You may be thinking, why a museum? First of all, it is an easy starting spot to find, just next to the Seine. Additionally, there are two exhibits going on right now that serve as a nice introduction to the topic of dance. If you head to the back of the museum, on the opposite side from the doors that you walked in, you will find a model of the Palais Garnier, one of the world's most well-known opera houses. Constructed from 1861 to 1875, this theater became the home of the Paris Opera Ballet, the oldest national ballet company. It is also famous for being the setting of Gaston Leroux's The Phantom of the Opera. The model is cut in half so you can see the layout of the building, and it is precisely decorated to reflect the ornamentation of the real thing. There is also a description explaining that the plans for the opera house came out of an architectural design competition won by Charles Gagnière. After this introduction to the setting of the Paris Opera Ballet, you can head up to the 5th floor of the museum, where there is currently an exhibit on Edgar Degas. Born in Paris and having lived most of his life in Montmartre, Degas often depicted images of dancers in his works. Over half, in fact, reference dance. Degas was a frequent patron of the Paris Opera and spent a lot of his time behind the scenes, either backstage or in rehearsals. This is where his inspiration came for works such as La Classe de Danse and L'Étoile. While the exhibit at the Musée d'Orsay is focusing on some of his portraits, there are still a few examples of his paintings of dancers, and they are certainly worth a visit. Having gotten this brief introduction to the Palais Garnier and Edgar Degas, it is a perfect time to head over to the real Palais Garnier. But pay attention to your time. The last entry for self-guided tours is 5:30 p.m. most days, and you're going to want to be sure that you have enough time to revel in all of the ornate detail. From the Musée d'Orsay, it's going to be about a 25-minute walk. You can also take the metro from station Solferino, take the 12 toward Front Populaire, and at station Madeleine, switch to line 8 toward Point du Lac. This will allow you to get out at the station aptly named Opéra, and as you ascend the stairs out of the station, you will get a beautiful view of the Palais Garnier's main facade. This opera house has inspired many other important buildings around the world, including the Hanoi Opera House, the Thomas Jefferson Building at the Library of Congress, the National Opera House of Ukraine, and the Municipal Theater of Sao Paulo, and it's no question why. The main facade was created with the work of 14 painters, mosaicists, and 73 sculptors. At the top of each end is a gilded sculpture, the left representing harmony and the right representing poetry. Between the facade's columns is a row of gilded bronze busts of some of the most famous composers, including Rossini, Beethoven, and Mozart. Sitting atop the south gable is Apollo, the Roman god of music, holding up his lyre. On the west side of the building lies the Rotonde de l'Empereur, a group of rooms that was originally intended to provide safe access to the building for the emperor. It now houses the Bibliothèque Musée de l'Opéra de Paris. On the east side is the Pavillon des Abonnés, which was designed as the entrance for subscribers of the opera. While the facades of the opera are exquisite in design, the interior does not disappoint. For a self-guided tour, you will enter the west facade and make your way up the grand staircase, an extravagant construction of white marble with red and green marble railings. It divides at the top, creating two smaller staircases which lead to the grand foyer. The purpose of this room was to act as a drawing room for the theater's patrons. It is ornately decorated with multiple hanging chandeliers and a ceiling painted by Paul-Jacques-Aimé Baudry that depicts moments in musical history. After visiting the Grand Foyer, you can peek into the auditorium, assuming it is not closed for rehearsals. The auditorium accommodates almost 2,000 people, providing a view of the biggest stage in Europe. It also holds the 7-ton bronze and crystal chandelier designed by Charles Gagnière. This chandelier received criticism for obstructing the view of the stage, but Gagnière believed that it was part of the beauty of the theater. In 1896, one of the chandelier's counterweights broke loose and fell into the auditorium, killing a concierge. This event inspired one of the famous scenes in The Phantom of the Opera. If you have spare minute and would like another view of this spectacular building, cross Boulevard Haussmann and go into Galerie Lafayette. Take the elevator up to the top floor. From there, you will find another set of stairs to the roof and one of the best views of Paris. From here, you can get a better look at the top of the Palais Gagnière, while also enjoying a view of the Arc de Triomphe, the Eiffel Tower, and Sacré-Cœur. The next stop on your tour is the Opera Bastille, constructed in 1989 by Uruguayan architect Carlos Haute. Seeing this opera house right after the Palais Gagnière will allow you to compare and contrast the styles. The first thing you will notice is that the Opera Bastille looks way more modern, with a sleek glass exterior that looks fairly industrial. The left-hand side of the front facade stands slightly behind another, older building, in the attempt to make the opera house fit in better with its surroundings. The Opera Bastille was specifically commissioned by President François Mitterrand as part of his monument building program, Grands Travaux. The original expectation was to have operas performed at the Opera Bastille and use the Palais Gagnière for ballets only. However, from the beginning this distinction did not take, and both venues put on ballet and opera performances. The Opera House was inaugurated on the eve of the 200th anniversary of the storming of Bastille. The next day, the Paris Opera performed their traditional Free Bastille Day concert. The opera has 3 main performance spaces: the main theater, a smaller studio, and an amphitheater. The main theater sits 2,700 people, and unlike the Palais Gagnière, all the seats are of the same type, with an unobstructed view of the stage. There are also no boxes. There are, however, 2 small standing areas at the back of the theater created in 2005. Tickets are sold for performances that same evening for €5. This is not a bad deal if you decide to go at the last minute or just don't want to break the budget. The theater is not particularly known for having good acoustics. However, one interesting feature is that the orchestra pit is actually an elevator. This allows it to grow or shrink to adapt to the size of the orchestra. While the main theater is the most well-known section of the opera house, it only makes up 5% of the volume of the entire building. A lot of the other room is made up of rehearsal spaces, as well as giant areas where they can store entire sets. The opera house has multiple pulley and elevator systems to move entire sets. Due to these systems, companies can rehearse one show during the day and perform a different one at night, storing away whichever set is not in use. Though the looming, industrial modern design of the Opera Bastille is not everyone's preference, there is no denying that it is an impressive structure and an important part of the development of dance's history in Paris. After your visits to the 2 major opera houses, it is time to move from the classical world of ballet and opera to the cabaret. Your next stop on this tour is the Moulin Rouge, and you will want to take another day for this visit. The original house was founded by Charles Zidler and Joseph Euler in 1889, the same year as the Eiffel Tower's construction, on Boulevard de Clichy near Montmartre. Take Metro Line 2 to Station Blanche and as you exit the station, simply look for the iconic red windmill. It is hard to miss. The Moulin Rouge was built right in the middle of the Belle Époque, a period in France between the end of the Franco-Persian War in 1871 and the beginning of World War I in 1914. This was a period of excitement, optimism, regional peace, and economic prosperity in France, and the arts flourished. It was the perfect period for the Moulin Rouge, an extravagant establishment built to be an entertainment venue for a diverse audience. In its first years, the Moulin Rouge hosted parties with an abundance of champagne and famous dancers. In 1915, a fire destroyed the Moulin Rouge, which had to be rebuilt. Mistinguett, a famous actor, dancer, and singer, became the co-director of the cabaret. She made her mark with her exceptional talent and songwriting. Many famous performers took the stage at the Moulin Rouge, including Edith Piaf and Yves Montand. It was also the inspiration for multiple films, including the award-winning Moulin Rouge, starring Nicole Kidman. However, the cabaret's most famous legacy is the can-can. Originally a seductive dance performed by the cabaret's courtesans, it evolved into a high-energy dance with high kicks, tricks, and extravagant costumes. The can-can is now a well-known dance performed all over the world, as well as in its birthplace, the Moulin Rouge. The sites we have previously visited are historical buildings that are deeply rooted in Paris's history. But if you've toured enough fancy buildings and are ready to be part of the action, you have options. First of all, the Palais Garnier, Opera Bastille, and Moulin Rouge are all venues that are still in use. If you are willing to pay the money, you can go to a show. Perhaps, instead of sitting down for a full-length ballet or can-can show, you're more interested in Paris's social dancing scene. Whether you are ready to dance your heart out or sip some wine as others do, you will have no problem finding places to go in Paris. There are many dance clubs for social dances like swing, tango, and different types of salsa. These can be great, especially with live music. However, be aware that some will require a cover charge to get in. As enjoyable as these clubs can be, my personal recommendation for a totally unique experience would be to find your way to the Quai Saint-Bernard, just along the Seine. It is an easy spot to find. Starting from Notre Dame, simply cross the bridge and make a left. Follow the Seine for roughly a kilometer, and you'll be there. The Quai Saint-Bernard is made up of 4 small amphitheaters, and every night, until roughly 5 in the morning, people crowd the area to drink and dance. Each amphitheater is dedicated to a different type of dance. There is one for tango, salsa, swing, and one that plays popular hip-hop. Dancing all night by the Seine is definitely an experience not to be missed. I hope this tour has prepared you to experience the world of dance in Paris. It is a rich part of the city's history and a wonderful way to get a sense of Parisian culture. Have a wonderful trip and happy dancing!